Decoding the Battle of Little Bighorn, Custer's Fall and the Sioux' Defiant Victory. A lone Sioux warrior stands resolute on a windswept ridge, his leather tunic stained with the sweat of resolve, a carved wooden staff gripped tightly in his calloused hand. Astride a painted horse, he gazes down at a sprawling village of 8,000 souls, as historian John Gray meticulously recorded in his 1976 chronicle, Custer's last campaign. Smoke curls lazily from 1,200 lodges, each a sanctuary for families, elders, women, children, not merely a warrior's camp. Across the valley, a staggering herd of 20,000 horses grazes, a breathtaking testament to the might of the Cheyenne and Sioux, as documented by Army scouts on June 25, 1876. This was no transient encampment, it was a defiant nation, united under leaders like Sitting Bull and Crazy Horse, poised to defend their sacred lands. A U.S. Army scout, his blue coat tattered, scribbles a desperate warning: 2,500 warriors lie in wait. So why did George Armstrong Custer, a seasoned commander, dismiss this intelligence and charge with only 260 men against a force 10 times his own? What drove this fatal gamble, and what deeper truths does this clash reveal about ambition, resistance, and the cost of empire? In this retelling, we unravel the Battle of Little Bighorn, a seismic moment in the Great Sioux War of 1876, through vivid accounts, hard evidence, and the voices of those who lived it. We'll spotlight Major Reno's fateful charge, probe the controversies surrounding Custer's decisions, and invite you to grapple with the moral and strategic questions that still echo from this bloody valley. As a historian of the American West, I'll guide you through this saga, urging you to reflect: what does Little Bighorn teach us about courage, hubris, and the clash of worlds? The road to ruin, setting the stage for Little Bighorn. The Battle of Little Bighorn, fought on June 25 to 26, 1876, in Montana's rugged plains, was a cataclysmic collision between the U.S. Army's 7th Cavalry, led by Lieutenant Colonel George Armstrong Custer, and a coalition of Lakota Sioux, Northern Cheyenne, and Arapaho tribes. To understand this tragedy, we must first trace its roots to a broken promise. The 1868 Treaty of Fort Laramie had guaranteed the Black Hills of South Dakota to the Sioux in perpetuity. Yet, when gold was discovered there in 1874, the treaty became a casualty of greed. Historian D. Brown notes in Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee, 1970, that by 1875, over 15,000 prospectors swarmed the region, their numbers recorded in the ledgers of boomtowns like Deadwood. The U.S. government, rather than enforcing the treaty, demanded the Sioux sell their sacred lands. When negotiations collapsed in 1875, Sitting Bull famously declared, "The Black Hills are not for sale." The army was unleashed to forcibly relocate the tribes to reservations. General Philip Sheridan, architect of the campaign, deployed over 2,500 troops to converge on the Sioux by early 1876. His plan relied on outdated intelligence, estimating fewer than 800 warriors, as per May 1876 reports. But Sitting Bull's village along the Little Bighorn River was no ordinary camp. Swelled by tribes fleeing reservation life, it housed 4,000 to 8,000 people, including 800 to 1,500 warriors, according to scout reports and army tallies. The valley itself was a fortress. The Little Bighorn River, swollen to 50 to 100 yards wide by spring runoff, shielded the east, while cliffs and ravines, some plunging 100 feet, guarded the west, as mapped in post-battle surveys. Historian Robert Utley captured it starkly in 1973. The terrain made the valley impregnable. This natural stronghold would expose the 7th Cavalry's vulnerabilities, particularly during Reno's ill-fated charge. Historical question: how did the U.S. government's violation of the 1868 Treaty of Fort Laramie contribute to the escalation of the Great Sioux War? What parallels can you draw to other historical breaches of indigenous treaties? Dawn's warning: scouts uncover a formidable foe. June 25, 1876. The sun rises over Montana's endless plains, casting a golden glow on a weary Lieutenant Charles Varnum. At 27, a 1872 West Point graduate, Varnum leads a diverse scout team, 15 Arikara couriers, crow trackers, and interpreters, tasked with locating Sitting Bull's camp. After a grueling 60-mile ride, their horses stagger, and Varnum's eyes burn from 24 sleepless hours. Around 4:30 a.m., they reach a vantage point later called the Crow's Nest. The Crow scouts, intimate with the land, halt abruptly. 20 miles away, faint smoke tendrils rise. Below, a sea of 15,000 to 20,000 horses blankets the valley, an undeniable sign of a massive village. Varnum, a plains novice, squints but sees only blurred hills. The scouts, led by Half-Yellow Face and Red Star, are adamant. Mitch Boyer, a half-Crow interpreter, raises his spyglass and confirms, a sprawling encampment hugs the river, stretching 3 miles, as Cheyenne warrior Wooden Leg later recalled. This was a nation, not a war party. The horse herd signaled peril, with each warrior owning 3 to 5 mounts. 15,000 to 20,000 horses suggested 3,000 to 6,000 fighters, far exceeding General Alfred Terry's 800 warrior estimate. Varnum scribbles a note, large village, massive herd, 20 miles out, and dispatches Arikara couriers Red Star and Bull. They reach Custer by 7:30 a.m., delivering a warning that should have reshaped his strategy. The scouts were the cavalry's lifeline. As Nathaniel Philbrick writes in The Last Stand, 2010, without them, officers were blind. The Crow and Arikara, driven by ancestral grudges against the Sioux, pressed on despite exhaustion. Yet, as John Gray notes, dust and distance obscured the village's true scale, leading Custer to underestimate his foe. What do you think? Could better communication between scouts and officers have altered Custer's approach? Why or why not? Custer's march, ambition and fractured unity. George Armstrong Custer cuts a striking figure, his buckskin jacket flapping, golden curls spilling from a wide-brimmed hat. At 36, the Civil War hero, still general to his men, burns with ambition. But his 7th Cavalry is a house divided. Captain Frederick Benteen harbors resentment from the 1868 Washita campaign, where Custer abandoned men to slaughter. Major Marcus Reno, overshadowed by Custer's fame, nurses personal grievances. As they march down the Rosebud River, their 600 men and horses falter, starved by the native herds grazing. From June 22, the regiment trekked 70 punishing miles from the Yellowstone River. Each soldier carried a Springfield carbine, 100 rounds, and 60 pounds of gear. The pack train, 130 men guarding 24,000 extra rounds, trailed miles behind. On June 25, scouts confirmed the village's location. Custer, expecting to link with Terry's column, instead split his force, Benteen with 125 men to the left, Reno with 140 south, himself with 210 north, and the pack train lagging. The terrain, steep bluffs and deep ravines, per 1876 maps, favored the defenders, who knew every fold of the land. Historian Gregory Michno, Lakota Noon, 1997, calls it a defender's dream. Custer, banking on the tribes fleeing as they had at Washita, ignored Scout Mitch Boyer's warning, "This is the biggest village I've ever seen." His response, "We'll get through them in a day," proved a fatal misstep. Controversy to debate, was Custer's decision to split his forces a tactical blunder or a reasonable gamble given his past successes? Consider the terrain, his intelligence, and his personality. Share your perspective. Was Custer reckless, or was he betrayed by circumstance? Reno's charge, courage under fire. Midday, June 25. The Montana sun scorches at 80 degrees Fahrenheit, and the 7th Cavalry sheds wool jackets for dusty shirts. Reno's 175 men, Companies A, G, M, ride exhausted saddlebreds and Morgans, armed with Springfield carbines and Colt revolvers. At 3 p.m., they ford the 50-yard wide Little Bighorn River, rifles aloft, and charge toward the village. The sight is staggering, 1,200 to 1,800 teepees stretched 3 miles, housing 4,000 to 8,000 people, including 800 to 1,500 warriors. Reno expects a quick rout. Instead, warriors erupt, hundreds on swift ponies, wielding bows, tomahawks, and Winchester repeaters that fire 12 to 16 shots to the Springfield's 1. Reno forms a skirmish line 300 yards out, 131 shooters, 44 holding horses. Their volleys briefly halt the tide. But warriors swell, 500, then 1,000, flanking with piercing war cries. Outnumbered 7 to 8 to 1, Reno retreats to a cottonwood grove, then, overwhelmed, bolts for the bluffs. Chaos reigns, 40 men die, 13 are wounded, as warriors pursue them across the river and up 100, 200-foot slopes. Survivors entrench atop, shaken, with Custer's whereabouts unknown. Private William Taylor recalled, "It was as if the earth itself unleashed them." Cheyenne warrior Wooden Leg later boasted, "We knew we could overwhelm them."